Last weekend, the Sky Bet Championship got underway in July, believe it or not, and we now see 24 teams going head-to-head in what is one of the most competitive leagues in world football. So we've gone to the wonder that is Football Manager to find out who they think is going to win the league this season in the Sky Bet Championship. Shall we go and have a look? Come on. Now to do this sim, we've popped over to our friends at Sorted Out SI to get this data update. It is fantastic. All transfers, managerial, player changes, up to date as of the end of January right now. Pop on over, link below. It's basically playing Football Manager 2023 right now. It's like a free game. Go and do it. Football Manager tells it that the Sky Bet Championship is the 20th best league in world football, followed by some pretty big leagues, I think you'd agree. Taking a look at this year's competitors, the 22-23 season, there are some very big clubs there, some that have come up from League One and some that have dropped down from the Premier League. And the season preview has Burnley as odds-on favourites, just pipping Watford in second and Norwich in third. Surprise, surprise, the three teams that have come down from the Premier League are the favourites to bounce right back up. But working your way down that list, there are some big clubs biting at their ankles, desperate to get into the mix themselves. But taking a look at the bottom end of that league, you will see some big teams, and some who are going to have a bumpy ride, certainly. Rotherham, Wigan, Blackpool, Huddersfield, and the mighty Sunderland, all down there fighting for survival. So now to find out who is going to survive and who is going to go up into the Premier League. And before we get into those big results, press pause, pop down in those comments and tell me, who do you think is going to finish first and who do you think will finish 24th? I'm going to tell you right now, first place will be Sheffield United. And finishing the bottom, I'm going to agree with Football Manager there. I think Rotherham are 250 to 1. Sadly, boys, you are going down. So let's jump to the end of the season. And the season is over. The Sky Bet Championship has finished, and there is the season preview. Before we jump into the full results, we're going to take a deep dive into the players, the clubs, any standout performers, so you guys can run down to the bookies after this video to place your bets. We'll take a look at the top goal scorer, the best performers, and some of the surprise packages, and believe you me, there are a few. So let's start off on the pitch, some of the best performers, and one caveat I should add, the transfer window has been open this season, so there are players who are going to be in this database who aren't in their clubs. For example, the top goal scorer in the league, Mr. Perez, played for Burnley. He's obviously signed from Leicester on loan for £700,000, and you've got to think what a brilliant signing he would actually be. He's not in the first team for Leicester. He could drop down and batter teams in this division. Other notable mentions, Josh McGuinness from Wigan, a struggling team, but they've got a boy here who has got goals galore. Lucas João from Reading, another team who were destined to struggle, popping up with goals galore. If we look at the assists, Burnley are up the top yet again, which is a good indication of where they may have finished this season. Ashley Westwood with 19 assists across the season, 7 clear of anybody else, and the same teams are popping up again. Blackburn, they must have scored some goals this season because they've got a couple of boys there getting assists for days. And the players there who have won the most player of the matches, genuinely the standout performers. Surprisingly, there's a couple of goalkeepers up there. And the final player stat we're going to jump into is the average rating. Across the whole season, these players get voted for every game out of 10. And the best one here is Harry Souttar, the massive centre-back who's 6'19". He's rocked up with a very impressive 7.33 average across the whole season. Just pipping 3 of the Burnley boys to the top of the table. So enough flirting, let's take a look at this league. And there it is in all of its glory. And the one thing that stands out to me immediately is you look at the top right hand side, the form. Watford pipped Burnley to first place at the last game of the season. Burnley losing, Watford winning on a brilliant 5-win streak at the end has seen them go up as champions. Burnley second, notable mentions for Blackburn finishing third, but sadly missing out on that playoff promotion, which can also be said for Middlesbrough, but Norwich and Bristol City are in the mix for that playoff final. Bristol City, very surprising, because in real life, I think they may struggle. Then we look at 7th, Coventry, finishing incredibly high, and their form towards the end of the season fell off a cliff. They could have done a lot better. And then coming into 8th, my tip, Sheffield United, not doing very well at all, but I do think they will do better that in real life. And some other disappointing finishes, especially for West Brom and Swansea. My beloved Swansea finishing 11th. West Brom, all the money they've got finishing in 10th. They'll be disappointed with that. And the teams below, mid-table to lower table mediocrity, you have to say. The bottom mix. Blackpool's form at the end of the season was that bad. It's pulled them right into the mix, but the reality, Huddersfield, Wigan and Rotherham's, their fate was sealed a little while back, finishing quite far adrift at the bottom. Now again, for full disclosure, some of those teams would have players that have not been signed in real life. Let's take a look at the transfer page for some interesting ones, and there are some interesting ones. You look at Watford, they picked up Almiron. The Paraguayan from Newcastle has come in, 15 games, 10 assists. That looks like a January transfer signing that has made a huge difference to their team. And you've got to think to yourself, are these players potentially names that can drop down in real life right now and make a big difference to their team? Because there is a lot of money being spent there, particularly from Burnley. And moving on to the awards, the manager of the year goes to Nigel Pearson at Bristol City. And to be fair, when you see,
and I think you are an ostrich,
that he's taken them to the promised land of the Premier League via the best mode of promotion, if you ask me, the playoff final, is no surprise why he's got that award. If we look at the player of the year, we've got Harry Souttar, that wonderfully tall Stoke City defender from Australia and Scotland. You can imagine the accent on him. A really good season. Surprising that a centre-back has got player of the year though. And here's one for you to soak in. The players' team of the year. It is dominated by 3 teams. Watford defensively, Burnley going forward, and a random Norwich player in there, which is strange considering the player of the season hasn't even made the squad. So for all you Sky Bet Championship followers and fans of the clubs you can see in front of you, pop a comment down below. Let me know if you agree with that league finish, and as mentioned earlier, who you think will finish top of that division. I love the fact that any team there can beat any team there. Literally, all our hopes and dreams are pinned on those teams to go into the promised land and the riches that we can get from the Premier League. And with the added excitement of that playoff promotion setup, it really is one of the best leagues in world football. So some really interesting results there, and next week we're going to jump into 5 of the best wonder kids that you will find in the championship. And there's some absolute pearlers. We've simmed for 10 years, and in the future some of these boys are very, very good. And speaking of wonder kids, make sure you pop on over to FM Llama's video to find out what happened to the ultimate wonder kid, Freddie Adu.